Our next session, this one, I'm looking forward to this one. This one is about sleep. So I just want to do a quick poll with you here. Who among you believes that you get a regular good night's sleep? If you could raise your hand. Okay, all right. And who among you scrolls on the phone before you go to sleep? Okay. And who among you is lying about both of those things? Yeah, not one person put their hand up. Thank you, madam. Well, our next speaker is Dr. Carmel Harrington. She is an Australian sleep scientist. She is a best-selling author. She has been researching sleep for a good 2 decades now, and she is the Managing Director of Sleep for Health, as well as a research fellow at the Westmead Children's Hospital in Sydney. So here to talk about sleep, please welcome Dr. Carmel Harrington.
So what a pleasure it is to be here today among such a supportive group. So thank you for the invitation to speak here today. So sleep, it's such a simple word, but for many I think it's an aspirational statement. And I think we have to work on that a little bit. So Shakespeare once described sleep as the chief nourisher in life's feast. But I sort of think some of us might be a little bit hungry these days. Now, we know from population studies that adults require somewhere between 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. In the late 1950s, early 60s, they were getting on average 8.5 hours. Now, fast forward to today, and that's now down to 6.8 hours, and about 40% of the population is not getting the sleep that they require. So we know that many of us are fasting at the table of life's feast. So today I'm going to talk and touch on a few aspects of women in sleep. I know lots of people have touched on it in different ways today, but I think it's important to talk about the genderisation of sleep because it's actually a thing. And we're very familiar with the adage of men are from Mars, okay? So these genderised differences actually play out when it comes to sleep. Now, we might make the mistake of thinking it's just middle-aged women that have problems with their sleep or that they're most known to have, but it's much more complex than that because women have a very pronounced stages in their life cycle. So there's menstruation, there's pregnancy, and there's menopause. And at each one of those stages, fluctuating hormones can have quite a significant impact on their ability to sleep. Now, up until puberty, boys and girls require much the same amount of sleep. However, at the commencement of menstruation and for the rest of her life, a woman will require more sleep than men, on average about 20 minutes per night, but they will struggle to get it. As a consequence, many women are more vulnerable to mood disruption and health issues. So young women frequently experience mood swings in the second half of their cycle. This is often referred to as premenstrual syndrome, and the symptoms include irritability, depression, foggy brain, lack of motivation, and often a go-to medication for that is an antidepressant. But I think the more interesting question is, why is it that a woman's cycle can have such an effect on her mood and her behaviour? Well, considerable insight into this has been gained in recent years, and it turns out that sex hormones have a big effect on a woman's ability to sleep. Now, progesterone, which increases in the second half of the cycle after ovulation, actually increases our body temperature and decreases our sensitivity to melatonin. So that makes it more difficult to get to sleep and stay asleep. But on top of that, progesterone is a soporific, meaning that we actually need more sleep in the second half of our cycle. So the very difficult situation that many women face in the second half of their cycle, they need more sleep but will find it more difficult to get. So not surprisingly, a lot of women by the time they get to the end of their cycle are actually severely sleep deprived. Now guess what the symptoms of sleep deprivation are? Irritability, depression, foggy brain, lack of motivation. exactly the same symptoms as we see in premenstrual syndrome. So it's an unfortunate reality that there is a generalised lack of consideration as being one of the possible primary culprits in the development of premenstrual syndrome. Too often, and I've heard this over and over again today, too often any change in a woman's behaviour has been passed off as, oh, she's hormonal, without any investigation or research. Historically as well, medical research focusing on women's issues has been very limited, or women's health has been very limited, because exactly of the problem of our hormones. We're not reliable. So it's a very interesting situation we find ourselves in. But this is changing as young women move into research, and we're beginning to become more comfortable with women's issues, and I see that over and over again today. Now, in the case of premenstrual syndrome, before reaching for medication, it might be a good idea just to do a mood and sleep diary, just to see if there's any particular pattern with sleep. Now, if you start to observe that in the first half of the cycle, your sleep's pretty good, but in the second half of the cycle, problems with sleep start to emerge and you're experiencing daytime symptoms, then it's a pretty good indication that maybe we need to start looking at how we optimise your sleep before we do anything else. Now, that could be pretty simple things to do, like actually responding to our greater need for sleep in the second half of the cycle, being very diligent with our sleep practices, e.g. mobile screens, and also looking at your iron and ferritin levels. Now, we've spoken about that already. So it's actually quite important once we start doing that to implement change if we find it's a sleep issue first. Let's do that. Now, it's not just women in their premenstrual or in their menstrual stage, but it's also people in pregnancy may well experience problems during and after pregnancy. Now, the sleep difficulties they experience at this time may well impact their ability to enjoy their new baby. So it may come as very little surprise to any of you that one of the major culprits in the development of postnatal depression is severe sleep disruption and sleep deprivation. Oh, that's an eye-opener, isn't it, actually? And so one of the things that you might start to want to do when you have a new bub in the house is start monitoring how much sleep the parents are getting in the 24-hour period. Now, if one of the parents is getting less than 6 hours sleep, 2 nights running, then do your best on the third night for that parent to get 8 hours sleep, or as much sleep as possible. Now, this may take a bit of planning because, especially if the bub's being breastfed, but doing that may minimise your risk of severe sleep deprivation and the potential mental health adverse consequences. Now, fertile and pregnant women are not alone in experiencing sleep issues associated with their life cycle. As we all know, or a lot of you wouldn't know because you're too young, but women around about the age of 50 do experience substantial sleep issues, and 1 in 2 women report sleeping difficulties. Oftentimes, these women are recommended antidepressants or sleeping pills. But before we do that, maybe we should be investigating their sleep health. We're beginning to understand more and more of the great adverse consequences of sleep deprivation. Now, some of the consequences of the sleep difficulties are a result of the natural ageing process, but there's 2 conditions that really can impact a woman's ability to sleep well, and that's sleep apnea and hot flushes. Now, sleep apnea is the snoring disease, and it's typically thought of as the man's disease. Now, that's not incorrect totally. However, the landscape changes considerably at around about the age of 50. At that point of time, often the withdrawal of estrogen and progesterone, our sexual hormones, actually triples the vulnerability for the development of sleep apnea. And at around about the age of 50, 1 in 10 women will experience sleep apnea. Now, the problem with this, of course, is that sleep apnea causes dips in oxygen levels overnight, and it severely fragments your sleep. So someone suffering from sleep apnea will have the hallmarks of sleep deprivation, which are insomnia, highly fragmented sleep, morning headache, brain fog, depression. Now, coming as they do around about the age of 50, oftentimes these are perceived as menopausal symptoms and no investigation of sleep apnea is done. So I actually encourage any woman here who has recently started snoring and is experiencing daytime symptoms to have a chat with their GP. Sleep apnea can be cured and treated very easily, not cured, but treated. We just need to know that it's a possibility. Now, the other thing that actually can affect your ability to sleep well at this age is hot flushes. Now, hot flushes are highly disruptive to sleep and can leave a woman feeling all the consequences of sleep deprivation. Now, hot flushes are a result of the loss of our thermoneutral zone. Now, prior to menopause, women can have increases and decreases in body temperature up to 0.4 degrees Celsius and not actually have a physiological response. Now, the reason for this is estrogen provides a temperature shield, or sort of a protection to temperature, and it does not end up in a physiological response. But after menopause, when we lose estrogen, we lose that temperature shield. And so a woman only has to increase their body temperature really slightly by 0.1 degrees Celsius, and we will have a physiological response, which is a hot flush. So apart from HRT or hormone replacement therapy, which has shown some really good results in minimising menopausal symptoms, there are some behavioural interventions that can be done that have been shown to have good results in randomised controlled trials. Now, a lot of these behavioural interventions are aimed at decreasing anxiety and calming the body, and these include yoga, cognitive behavioural therapy, hypnosis, and relaxation exercise or meditation. And I love the breath work that was done earlier. All of those sorts of things will really decrease your feelings of anxiety, calming the body, and reducing those minor increases in temperature. There's also some lifestyle modifications that have been shown to be quite good in managing temperature fluctuations, and these include regular exercise, weight loss, limiting spicy food intake, ensuring that your bedding is of natural fibre and breathable, that you sleep in a cool room around about 18 degrees Celsius, and be diligent with good sleep practices. Now, I have to stress, it is not normal. It's not a normal part of ageing for a woman to feel exhausted every day and lack the energy to enjoy life. If a woman presents with either of these symptoms, her sleep health should be a consideration. I think sleep is like a magic pill. It makes me feel great, it stimulates my immune system, it refreshes my mind and repairs my body, so that when I wake up, I am ready and able to meet the joys and the challenges of the day with enthusiasm. Research even confirms that you're more attractive after a good night's sleep. So I would encourage you all, for your health and happiness, start thinking of sleep as your third pillar of health, along with exercise and nutrition. We need to start giving sleep the respect it deserves, and you'll only feel great for doing so. So thank you very much.